But don't make things harder for yourself. Don't make matters worse by having a negative mindset where basically it's hopeless, because it's a self-fulfilling prophecy and the results you'll get will be based on the fundamental beliefs that you have. Hey badasses, welcome back to the Badass Careers YouTube channel, which is all about helping you to find your purpose, to brand yourself, and to land your dream job. Today's video is all about a word on rejection. Now, rejection is one of the most confronting and grueling and exhausting parts of the job hunt process. You can be the most talented person in the world, the hungriest, the most passionate, and if you're doing things right, and yes, I said it, if you're doing things right, you will face rejection, and I will get into that a little bit later in the video. And while nothing can take away that initial pain of that rejection and that feeling like you've really put your heart into something, your heart and soul into an application, and if only they knew how badly you wanted it, and if only they'd given you a chance to meet them in person, then you could convince them and tell them how great you'd be in the job. And I get that. I've been there, and I have clients who've been there, and I get how heavy that feels. There are ways that you can prepare for rejection and you can deal with rejection so that it doesn't compromise the rest of your job search. Because dealing with rejection isn't about not feeling like crap. That still happens, but it's about not letting that overpower you, not letting that slow you down, not putting you into a spiral of procrastination, or having you feeling like you should just give up. It's about priming your mindset so that you can bounce back from the rejection as quickly as possible. So yes, you feel it, you let it sit and you process it, and then you can bounce back and get on with the show basically. And I just want to let you know that you're not an overly sensitive, emotional being. Hey, maybe you are, and that's actually a really positive thing, but it's not you that takes rejection really, really personally. It's actually ingrained into us and built in us to really feel negativity and rejection, because our brain is hardwired for our survival and wants to keep us safe. And what this means is that the brain has a very, very strong negativity bias. So positive things are nice and they're wonderful and they're all that stuff, but do they keep us alive though? And so it wants to keep us safe, right? From physical threat and from psychological threat as well. And so this is interesting information for the brain because this hurts. So the brain's like, let's not do this again because it could compromise our physical or emotional psychological safety. So you're literally in a battle against your brain to say, hey, yeah, it hurts, but let's flip the script, keep moving, and use this as fuel to actually do even better and go even harder in the job search. And just a disclaimer before I do jump into these tips on how to best deal with rejection is that rejection is part of a job change process. You're incredible, you're amazing, you're talented, you're a high achiever, and you will be rejected. And if you're not being rejected, I would challenge you that you're not getting out of your comfort zone enough. Because yeah, it'd be super easy to play really small, right? And just go for roles that you're 130% certain that you could do, and then they say yes, and you know, at least you haven't been rejected. You might be bored after 3 months in the role and severely underpaid, but at least you haven't been rejected. That's not what we want. Real growth is going to happen outside of the comfort zone. We want you to go for roles that feel big, that feel like you can grow into them, right? They're 2 suit sizes too large for you. And that's exciting because imagine all the growing and development that you're going to do over the space of a couple of years. So if rejection isn't inevitable for you and it isn't part of the process, you may want to check yourself and just make sure that you're actually going for roles that are stretching you. So a few tips on how to handle our good friend rejection. So my first is that it's all about high intention, low attachment. And what this means for me is that you put your heart and soul into it, high intention, you do your best, and you really go hard in the process. It's intention with the way you approach things, high intention in what you do, but low attachment to the outcome. So whether it's a yes or a no, you're detaching from that. That's not the definition of success here. So it's about having the opportunity to practice your elevator pitch. It's about having the opportunity to brand yourself in a new way and trying out new things with your cover letter and resume and see how that lands. It's about meeting interesting people and cool companies. It's about so much more than the outcome. So your intention, your goals should be all around the process and not necessarily the outcome. I know it's easy to say, but every process is full of learning and growth, and it's an interesting opportunity in so many different ways. And if you can enjoy the process, or at least learn to see the benefit of the process, then you'll be far less devastated if the outcomes are no. The next tip is around not making it mean something, okay? Not making it mean something it doesn't. I have been in the decision-making room. I have been the recruiter. I have been the one working with the managers to decide who gets the role and who doesn't. And let me tell you, there are 1,000 different reasons you may not have got in that role. Firstly, there are personal referrals, which are super, super strong, where a current employee has recommended someone that they know for the role. There's also just nepotism, so maybe the director's nephew applied, or her godson, or something like that, and that comes into play sometimes as well, much to the disdain of most recruiters, but unfortunately those are the kind of dynamics we sometimes have to deal with. Sometimes we can be at the very, very end offer stage of a role, and there's a company-wide headcount freeze that's been announced. Sometimes the budget for the role gets canned. Sometimes the hiring manager was never really interested in external prospects anyway. They had an internal hire already in mind for the role. And sometimes there's just another candidate who was outstanding. They had the skills, but they also had the passion and the hunger, and they networked and they just blew us out of the water, and that happens too sometimes as well. So rather than making a rejection about you and what it means about you, like I'm not enough, I'm not qualified enough, I wasn't smart enough, I wasn't confident enough in the interview, all of these horrible thoughts, detach yourself from it and think to yourself, what can I learn from this? And this is where you ask for feedback as well, which we'll get into a little bit. But wherever you can, it's really about using this as fuel to keep going, rather than like, oh, I should have never applied to a company like that. I should have never applied to a role like that. I suck, I'm not good enough, and I'll never ever get into the company. We'll talk about that a little bit later as well, because I have seen this happen so many times where a client has been rejected once or twice from a dream company and they actually get the role on the third time. Now, tip number 3 is believe that there is an abundance of opportunities out there for you. And this comes down to a bit of psychology 101, but have you ever noticed, you buy your first car and it's a red car and suddenly you see red cars everywhere? Or maybe one of your best friends gets pregnant and suddenly everyone's pregnant. Or maybe you had that just one sneaking suspicion about that dodgy ex-boyfriend, and then suddenly like every single thing he'd do, you'd be able to notice that there was actually loads of clues that he was just a giant loser. My point is that this is how the brain works. That's called the brain's reticular activating system. And basically what it means is that when you have a thought or a belief or a story or a concept floating around in your brain, the reticular activating system is actually scanning for evidence and affirmation and information that aligns to that. So this is happening completely subconsciously. You have no control over it, just like when you've, driven from work to home and you have no idea how you got there. It's completely automatic and happening subconsciously. But basically how it works is that based on your beliefs and your thoughts, it will tune in to specific information more than others. So you just bought a red car, now it's noticing red cars. But what it also means is that if you fundamentally believe that there's a lack of jobs out there, that the job market's really tight and people are really struggling and it's just really a horrible landscape at the moment, then your brain is actually going to pick up on all this information. It's going to notice the headlines saying the same thing. It's going to overhear people talking about these kinds of stories. It's going to hear about the struggles. You're going to see and hear and process the information that basically backs up your hypothesis. But likewise, if you fundamentally believe that there's an abundance of opportunity out there, there's loads of activity happening, it may be on the hidden job market, but there are jobs being opened and filled all the time around you in your target profession, then guess what will happen? So if you think about the basic mindset triangle, right, where you've got your belief or your thought or your story up the top, and that informs the action taken or your behavior, which then informs your results, it becomes pretty clear that you're literally creating your own reality. So if your belief is that there are no jobs out there, it's completely dry, there's nothing on the market, and companies just aren't hiring at the moment, your reticular activating system is going to be scanning, beep, 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 and pick up on all the evidence and reasons that that's true and make you feel like you're right about that. The behavior is that you will not take action, you will procrastinate, maybe you'll go for a few things, but you won't really put your heart into it because what's the point if it's not going to work out anyway? So you're going to behave in a way that's not conducive to results. And then the result is that you can't find a job and you don't get a job. Now, I'm not saying that objectively sometimes the market is incredibly tight and it's incredibly competitive and saturated and hard to find a job, but there is always hiring activity happening out there, mostly 80% of the time in the hidden job market. But don't make things harder for yourself. Don't make matters worse by having a negative mindset where basically it's hopeless, because it's a self-fulfilling prophecy and the results you'll get will be based on the fundamental beliefs that you have. So rather than getting trapped in this vicious cycle, I really want you to believe it. I want you to believe that there are opportunities out there, exciting opportunities, and I want you to visualize it. I really want you to imagine how it will feel getting that job offer. And this actually tricks your brain, who can't differentiate between what's real and not real. So they can't really differentiate between information you're just sort of telling yourself versus things that have actually happened. And it will actually get it into the mode of like, okay, that's going to happen, and remotivate it and really help switch up those fundamental beliefs so that you can get yourself on the self-fulfilling prophecy of success. Now, talking about upgrading your mindset, this is going to be really useful when you ask for feedback. So if you've received one of those generic auto replies, which is like, thank you, we were really lucky, we were spoiled for choice, and basically you didn't progress to the next round, or even you've been going through the interview process for a while and you get a rejection email from the recruiter, don't stop there. As scary as it may seem, you have to ask for feedback about why you didn't progress. Now, one of my clients received one of these autoresponder rejections from a company that she really wanted to go for, and she emailed them saying something like this. Hi Rebecca, thank you so much for your response regarding my application. With 7 years in digital marketing and communications in the mobile and web app space, I was super excited for this role. So would love to know how I might have improved my application. Do you have any specific feedback for me regarding either my CV, cover letter, or experience? I thrive on feedback, so I'm genuinely interested to hear how I might improve. I also know I applied a few weeks into your recruitment process, so was potentially late to the game, which mightn't have helped. Either way, I would really appreciate your insights. Have a great rest of your week. Best, Anna. Now, this is word for word the exact response that she got. Dear Anna, thank you very much for your email of yesterday. I completely understand the need for feedback. As you might know, our organization is very insistent about using feedback as a tool for growth. I should start with mentioning that my reasons in the original email were definitely too vague, and I should have clarified this more. I apologize for this. In retrospect, your application did tick the boxes in many ways. We loved the enthusiasm for organization, the way you formatted your CV to match our company standards, and your experience meets the needs of the post. So the reason we decided not to proceed is when you actually stated yourself. Unfortunately, while we were impressed with your application, we already have a few candidates at the very end of the application process and a few in the later stages. I should have stated this originally, but did not do so, etc., etc. So the recruiter here, I know not all of them get back to you, but you never know, has basically let this person know exactly what went wrong. She applied a bit too late in the game, and they had already started processing candidates a few weeks prior. Now, the plot twist is that this client is actually currently in the very, very final stages for another more senior, higher paid role at this exact company. So remember, no, when you get a no, it's not necessarily no forever. It's no for right now, no for this particular opening. But it doesn't mean that you can't impress a recruiter, keep networking with them, have a really positive attitude, and really stand out to the HR and recruiters that you've been working with, because they'll think of you when another opening comes up. Of course, it's not just about asking for the feedback, but listening to it as well. And just look to see if there are any themes or patterns coming up so that you can tweak your job hunt strategy if you so need to. Now, because we're humans and not robots, my last tip is that if you have been rejected and it's really getting you down, allow it, give yourself a deadline. So I want you to feel the rejection and process it. I really recommend having a job hunt journal where you can just write down how you're feeling on a daily basis. It's really cathartic and kind of get it all out, or maybe tell someone, tell a dear friend, just process it and get it out somehow. And then give yourself a deadline for how long you're going to allow it to get you down. So at first, this may be as long as a day. You may be like, when you're new to the game and you get that first big rejection and it kind of hurts, it may take a whole day where you just feel like, look, I'm going to take the rest of the day off. I need a break. I want to go for a walk. You may need to process it for that long. But as you keep going, it's going to get shorter and shorter and shorter. And eventually you'll be able to say, okay, I'm going to let this kind of get to me for about an hour. I'm going to set my timer, have a break, go for a walk, eat a piece of fruit, journal, do something. I'm going to go work out. And then when I get back at this time at 3 p.m., we're moving on. Because the biggest antidote to rejection is to keep the momentum high and just keep moving. You've got to stay high vibe as well. Like even if you've just had a big rejection and then you have an interview that afternoon, dance it out, do something to get high vibe, because people can feel it on you. You'll feel your energy, right? So make sure that you're always high vibe and high energy when you're interacting with people in decision-making roles as well. But if I had to sum it up in a nutshell, know and fundamentally believe that your next role is coming to you and it's going to be awesome. Know that you're going to grow and learn a lot through this, and just tell yourself that you're going to have a killer story to tell in the end, because no good story is just like, I wanted a job and then I got one. Be like, well, let me tell you what I went through to get this dream job. I went for 15 companies, 12 of them rejected me. It was a battlefield and I finally, a good redemption story, and then I got my dream job. So yeah, rejection may never get easier objectively, but you do get better at dealing with it. So for all of you job seekers out there right now who can feel me on this one, I'm sending you super good vibes. Keep going. Your role is coming, and I can't wait to hear about the next job that you land. Leave a comment below this video. And otherwise, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Until then, stay badass. Bye.